When looking at the grand timeline of the passenger ship, there are plenty of examples of both vessels that should have succeeded but failed, as well as ships that should have failed but accomplished the opposite. There are also a number of ships that never even got a chance, sometimes due to outside circumstances, but other times it was due to their purpose becoming irrelevant. This happened often, regardless of how viable they were when first conceived. Often, these canceled ships, whether big or small, aesthetically beautiful or ugly, or even radical or traditional, are looked upon favorably, and it always brings out statements in one's mind, such as what if, or if only. Every so often, a ship with everything stacked against it somehow makes it through and cheats death more than once. There is one ship around today that definitely meets that criteria. She is a fairly modest vessel with an awkward exterior appearance. Even with this common surface-level criticism, she is still a testament of what is possible when enormous leaps of faith are taken in something that everyone wrote off from the word go. From seemingly simple things like her port of registry and financial issues, to the bankruptcy of her owners and a partial sinking from a storm, this ship should not exist today. Yet despite it all, she did see the light of day, and she continues to thrive today, almost 30 years after she was first conceived. Not only that, she is in the same setting destined for her from the very beginning. This is the story of Norwegian Cruise Line's Pride of America, the cruise ship that refused to perish. Pride of America's story is a series of complicated events that, when examined in full, makes anyone wonder how the ship cheated death so many times. Many are unaware of her history. Most just see her as a typical, small, old and awkward-looking NCL cruise ship. What could possibly make her interesting, or be a possible choice for a cruise vacation? There are many things to discuss regarding this vessel, so let's start with her identity. Many mistakenly are under the impression that this ship was NCL's project right from the start. That idea couldn't be farther from the truth. Not only does this ship have its origins from an entirely different company, but it also is the lone survivor of a planned fleet of cruise ships destined to fly the American flag. Understanding this project's unique mission necessitates a brief examination of United States legislation regarding passenger ships sailing within its borders. Any casual observer looking at any ship sailing by will notice that on the ship's stern, usually just by the nameplate, is a name of a location. This is known as the port of registry. Most modern cruise ships have their port of registry in places like Nassau or Panama. Arguably the most famous passenger ship of all time, RMS Titanic, had her port of registry in Liverpool, England. The reason for this requirement is that for any ship to travel internationally, it must be registered in a recognized country, usually referred to as the flag state. For example, Norwegian Epic's port of registry is Nassau, Bahamas. Her official documentation is all under their subject, and as a result, she falls under their laws. The country has the responsibility to inspect the ship from time to time, as well as certifying its operations. An exceptionally rare thing to find on any ship, let alone modern cruise ships, is an American flag flying from the stern. Why is that? Well, there are several big reasons, but for the sake of the length of this video, we will discuss just one of them. The legal gymnastics of US-based cruising first began back in 1886, during the 49th session of the United States Congress. Representative Nelson Dingley Jr., a Republican from the state of Maine, introduced H.R. 10703 to the House floor. Going through the required process of getting it to the executive branch for approval, it was signed by President Grover Cleveland into law on June 19, 1886. This piece of legislation is known as the Passenger Vessel Services Act, sometimes abbreviated the PVSA. In conjunction with a later piece of legislation known as the Merchant Marine Act, commonly referred to as the Jones Act, which was passed and signed into law in 1920 by the Wilson administration, the law states that any vessel carrying passengers between one or more U.S. ports must be registered within the United States. In order for a ship to be registered as a U.S. vessel, it must have been constructed within the country, as well as being owned and majority crewed by citizens or permanent residents of the U.S. That is a pretty high standard. While these laws may benefit certain forms of shipping and types of vessels, in today's passenger and cruise ship industry, the idea of being US registered is next to impossible. Just the simple fact that the only shipyards that have the capability, staff, and knowledge to build giant cruise ships are all located outside the US borders makes the idea of being US registered a pipe dream, so they must be registered elsewhere. So how are cruise ships able to perform their duties within the US? Well, like with many laws, there are exceptions. If a vessel departs and then eventually returns to the same port and it is not US registered, it may do so, but only if it docks at another distant foreign port and the passengers travel with that vessel the whole time. If a ship departs one US port but the voyage terminates in another US port and it isn't US registered, then the ship must travel to a distant foreign port outside of North America, Central America, the Bermuda Islands, and the West Indies. Exempted locations include Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. That means the ship can't stop at basically any location within or bordering the Caribbean Sea. So how does this affect cruising? Let's say Norwegian Breakaway is wrapping up a cruising season in New York City and she needs to reposition to Miami, Florida for her next cruise season. Well, legally speaking, she can do that, but only if she either does not carry any passengers, or if she does, she needs to stop at another cruise port outside of those areas listed earlier. It can be pretty complicated trying to make this work, especially when companies want to try and offer cruises while they reposition their ships to a different US port. Simply doing deadhead or non-revenue voyages isn't something they particularly like to do unless there is no viable option. This is definitely a big issue when it comes to offering cruises to and out of Hawaii and Alaska. If NCL wants to offer cruises to Alaska out of any West Coast port, their ships have to go somewhere outside the US. That is an easier option for Alaska because Canada is right next door, but for Hawaii, this is obviously a bigger problem. If any company wanted to do cruises starting and ending within Hawaii, they had to add some sort of foreign stop, which was often Tabuaeren in the Line Islands. Just by doing this, it added 4 extra days to the itinerary, making it a very lengthy and more expensive cruise. I'm sure it's now becoming clear why cruising within the US can sometimes be complicated, regardless if a ship is US registered or not. With this knowledge, we can now dive into the main subject of this video. The origins of Pride of America start in the mid to late 1990s with the American-based company American Classic Voyages, or ACV. Founded in 1993, they were essentially the parent company of several other lines, which included the Delta Queen Steamboat Company, offering paddleboat voyages on the Mississippi River. Their more prestigious area, however, was the American Hawaii Cruises branch. They had 2 famous ocean liners under their belt, SS Constitution and SS Independence. As US-built and US-registered ships, they had the ability to offer cruises around the Hawaiian Islands without the need to travel elsewhere. The popularity showed, as nearly every voyage was at capacity, helping grow the company from a revenue of $67 million to $178 million within a decade. However, these ocean liners, though maintained and up-to-date internally, were over 40 years old and were really beginning to show their age, especially in maintenance costs. Eventually, they would need to go, but something needed to replace them. Between the eventual need of getting new ships and the continued popularity, ACV gained the confidence to pursue a seemingly impossible task, one that hardly anyone had dared to do for several decades. Before any official announcements were made, Constitution was retired in the mid-90s and eventually sold for scrap, although she would never make it to the scrapyard, as while undertow 700 nautical miles away from Hawaii, she sank due to the poor state of her hull condition and adverse weather. In 1997, as Constitution saw her final days, a statute by the U.S. Congress titled the U.S. Flag Cruise Ship Pilot Project was issued with the backing of the Department of Defense and the U.S. Maritime Administration. Its goals included the reintroduction of a U.S. flagged cruise ship fleet to boost tourism around Hawaii, the creation of more than 5,000 jobs, and a hopeful increase in tax revenues. A statement from ACV and Linton Industries Ingalls Shipbuilding was released announcing the intention to build at least 2 passenger ships that would service the Hawaiian market. It said that each $400 million ship would carry 1,900 passengers at double occupancy and come in around 71,000 gross registered tons. The idea from the onset, as stated by officials, was to revitalize the U.S. flag shipbuilding industry. Right away, the criticism and doubting started. People had simply already made up their minds. To them, there was a reason why there were hardly any US-flagged passenger ships left, and there were big reasons, such as the legislation examined earlier. The last US-built passenger ships of any notable size were more McCormick Line's SS Brazil and SS Argentina, who were both launched into service all the way back in 1958. The construction experience alone did not exist anymore in the country. ACV continued to press on despite the harsh realities. On the 9th of March 1999, a formal contract was signed between them and the Ingalls shipyard. It consisted of the following. Under the banner of Project America, the $1.4 billion deal called for 2 1,900 passenger ships to be built, with the first entering service in 2003. A third optional vessel was also included. Each ship would be 840 feet long and feature the same modern amenities as other impressive cruise ships, such as a 4-story high atrium, a 1,060-seat dining room, an 840-seat theater, and almost 86,000 square feet of open deck space. 77% of the 950 rooms would be outside cabins, 64% of which would have their own private balconies. In an effort to address the lack of construction experience issue, the shipyard agreed to team up with members of the highly experienced Kavernamassa shipyard located in Turku, Finland, to provide guidance and assistance with the design and construction process. At the time, they were in the process of constructing the first members of Royal Caribbean's new Voyager class. In another announcement made later that day was the disclosure of over $130 million to improve the facilities at the shipyard. Not only did ACV want to pursue these seemingly overly ambitious goals, but they also wanted to resurrect a former ocean liner company. Their new ships would be registered under the banner of United States Lines, the very same legendary company that owned and operated ocean liners like SS United States, SS America, and SS Leviathan. In April, the U.S. Maritime Administration agreed to help finance 87.5% of the total cost of the project, an amount totaling roughly $1.1 billion. With Project America now in the process of development, and with the SS Independence running the Hawaiian service on her own, ACV purchased Holland America Line's New Amsterdam in late 1999 to temporarily fill Constitution's slot until at least the first Project America ship entered service. An exception was given in order for the ship to be registered in Honolulu by the United States Congress, and she was renamed Patriot. Following a refit, she steamed into Hawaii under the United States Lines banner and started operations in December 2000. At the Ingalls shipyard in Pascagoula, Mississippi, the keel was laid for the first Project America vessel, then only known as Yard Number 7671. 2,300 of the 11,300 employees of the shipbuilder would be responsible for completing America's first passenger ship in well over 40 years. Right away, issues and delays began to plague the construction of the first vessel. Part of the shipyard upgrades financed by the $130 million grant was the installation of a 329-foot high, 411-foot wide, and 600-ton crane designed to help lift the grand blocks that would eventually comprise the structure of the ships. Delays in completing that project meant that the blocks needed to be built smaller than initially planned. The partnership with the Finnish shipyard also resulted in additional challenges, such as needing to design a ship that would meet American standards of construction, as well as needing to convert everything in the blueprints into imperial measurements. Because of the initial slow start, the delivery date needed to be pushed back at least a year. The project by all means was not in any danger of being cancelled, it was just simply taking a while for everyone to get up on their feet. After all, this was the first passenger ship that the US had built in almost half a century. Eventually, all of the necessary side projects would be done, and everything regarding the partnership would run more smoothly, making construction, in turn, a lot easier. By July 2001, approximately 20% of the first vessel had been assembled together. Now more than ever, it seemed that the critics would be wrong, that a new age of US-based shipbuilding was coming, and that a US-flagged cruise ship fleet was right around the corner. As the citizens of the United States were trying to come to terms with what was occurring on their soil, Project America's future took an abrupt turn. As a direct result of the worst terrorist attack in American history, global travel as a whole suffered. For ACV, it was especially bad. With their primary operations out of Hawaii, and with air travel really being the only way to get there, the writing was on the wall. Just over a month later, ACV filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Independence and Patriot were laid up following the conclusions of their cruises. Phil Callan, the CEO of the company, issued a statement. The tragic events of September 11 dealt a devastating blow to our business that has made it impossible to continue our full operations. We will continue to operate on a much reduced scale to focus on our Mississippi River cruises, which have been the historic core of our company. Without any clear indication on the future of Project America, speculations reigned. The shipyard had recently been acquired by Northrop Grumman, and the future for the project behind the scenes was not good. Within days of the bankruptcy filing, the loan guarantees were paused and work came to a halt. The main financier of the project, the U.S. Maritime Administration, made a proposal to Northrop Grumman in order for funding to continue in a way that would lessen taxpayer burden, but it was immediately rejected. With no clear route to go on, they decided to pull out completely on October 29th, and the shipyard laid off the majority of the Project America workforce. The first vessel's hull was anywhere from 37 to 50% assembled without a completed bow or stern. The second vessel had the majority of its parts ordered. Some assembly was already underway, although she had not had her keel laid by the time the funding was pulled. For months, the non-floatable hull of 7671 sat idly by as her future was being decided. In early 2002, the U.S. Navy considered the possibility of using the ships as floating command and control centers. Although appealing, differences in construction standards, materials, and high costs shelved the proposal by April. Another idea was floated by the local congressional representative of completing the two ships as overseas barracks, but this went nowhere. By midsummer, it seemed that Project America was both dead physically and in spirit. The best option for everyone, it seemed, was to scrap both ships. Just as all seemed lost, an unlikely event occurred from an equally unlikely candidate. Norwegian Cruise Line decided to purchase the incomplete hull of 7671 for $24 million. Not only that, but they also purchased all of the remaining materials for both ships. an amount enough to fill 400 shipping containers. They decided that they wanted to complete the first ship, and she would be a part of their own version of what American Classic Voyages was trying to do. Their proposal was to create a new brand, operating in tandem with the main cruise line called NCL America. It would be comprised of several US flagged ships, some of which would sail out of Hawaii. The first member of the formal Project America would now be the first ship in NCL America. Rather than completing the vessel at the Inaugural shipyard, NCL decided to have her completed at the Lloyd Werft shipyard located in Bremerhaven, Germany. While the hull and all the materials made their way across the Atlantic, NCL began to draw up their own plans for the vessel. At the same time, they moved to get 2 additional ships in their fleet to be US registered, even though they were not US built. Partially thanks to the purchase of 7671 and their proposed mission, the exception was granted. With 7671 now in the Bremerhaven shipyard, work finally resumed on updating and completing the cruise ship. The biggest notable change was the cutting of the hull in half in order to add an 82-foot section that would increase the overall length to 921 feet, and the gross tonnage to around 80,000. NCL then announced that the name to be given for this new vessel would be Pride of America. As construction of 7671 progressed throughout the early months of 2003, NCL purchased 2 additional vessels for their new service: SS Independence, whom had been laid up since America Classic Voyages Chapter 11 filing, and the legendary SS United States, the world's fastest ocean liner. Later that year, they also announced that Norwegian Sky would be joining the group as Pride of Aloha. NCL America would now eventually be comprised of 5 ships: Pride of Aloha, SS United States, SS Independence, a new build Jewel-class member to be named Pride of Hawaii, and Pride of America. Pride of Hawaii would be partially constructed by the materials destined for the second Project America vessel. The new venture would be launched by Pride of America on the 4th of July 2004 in Honolulu. By January 2004, 7671's 6 Wärtsilä 8L46C diesel engines were fully operational, and tests on the machinery began on board. Delivery was just several months away, the home stretch was in view, but then the unthinkable happened. Just days after the first engine testing, a massive storm with winds in excess of 105 miles per hour pounded the city of Bremerhaven. The many openings still in the lower hull allowed enough water to get inside to compromise the buoyancy of the vessel. Unable to fight off the extra weight, she listed and partially sank at the pier. The only thing that saved her from fully sinking was the shallowness of the area. 3 entire decks were submerged, as well as the majority of the newly installed machinery, propulsion, and electric systems. 4 workers on board were injured. If there was one positive thing that was found from this, the hull was eventually found to be unaffected. Clearly, she was not going to be ready for the big debut in several months, so Pride of Aloha was hurriedly converted, and she took over the slot of launching the NCL America brand on July 4. Once again, 7671's future hanged in the balance. Every proposal, which included salvaging, finishing, or scrapping, had its pros and cons. While negotiations took place between NCL and Lloyd Werft, the hull was slowly refloated after sitting partially submerged for over a month. From then on, she sat idly by as her future was once again being debated. After 6 months of tense negotiations involving over 60 international insurers, NCL finally announced that work would indeed continue on the vessel with a new delivery date of June 2005. The interiors and machinery were repaired and replaced, and work on finishing her resumed at a feverish pace. Roughly a year later, in May 2005, she was completed enough to perform her sea trials. Following the completion and passing of all of the necessary tests and inspections, she was formally delivered to Norwegian Cruise Line on the 7th of June 2005. Despite all of the odds stacked against her, Pride of America finally emerged from the Lloyd Werft shipyard, completed and ready to take on the world. She came out at 921 feet long, 106 feet wide, a displacement of 80,439 gross tons, and a capacity to carry 2,150 passengers in double occupancy, as well as 927 crew members. She has 15 total decks consisting of numerous different types of cabins, ranging from nearly 600 square foot suites to modest 107 square foot solo or studio cabins, as well as many public venues that evoke both a Hawaiian and uniquely American patriotic feel. At the heart of the ship is the 3-story high Capitol atrium, allowing access to the main public floors, which are decks 5 and 6. For dining, there are plenty of choices. For main dining, there is the Skyline Restaurant, the Liberty Restaurant, the Aloha Buffet, Key West Bar and Grill, and the Cadillac Diner. For specialty, there are numerous new and returning favorites, including but not limited to Jefferson's Bistro, Teppanyaki, and Cagney's Steakhouse. Even though she is a smaller ship, there are still a decent amount of entertainment or fill-in-the-time on board options. These include the Mardi Gras Lounge, a nightclub, art gallery, the Hollywood Theater, a fitness center, spa, video arcade, and the NCL America Library, named after the famous United States Lines ocean liner. Within the expansive library, there is a model of America, along with several artifacts from the real ship. On Deck 6 is a nearly full-length wraparound promenade and jogging track. Just above that amidships are 12 lifeboats and 6 tenders that also have the ability to function as lifeboats if needed. Up on the exposed upper decks, there are several pools, 5 whirlpools, bars, multiple observation points, and a sports court. The same 6 Wärtsilä diesel engines that had to be overhauled due to the devastating storm are what power the ship, each producing 8,400 kilowatts of power. For propulsion, she has 2 Rolls-Royce Mermaid Azipods that allow her to achieve an average speed of 22.2 knots. There are an additional 3 Rolls-Royce bow thrusters that aid with maneuvering. And, of course, the most recognizable feature that helps distinguish her, especially as an NCL ship, is the patriotic red, white, and blue flag and eagle head artwork located on the forward half of the ship's hull. As the newly completed cruise ship began to steam out of the shipyard for the final time, she passed by a former running mate, SS Norway, who had been housing some of her workers. She then headed out across the Atlantic to prepare for her long-awaited maiden voyage. NCL's newest ship finally sailed into New York Harbor. She was now finally back in the land of her birth, but this time she was doing so completed and steaming under her own power. On the 17th, she was officially christened as Pride of America, and she was given an American flag donated by the US Capitol building. It would fly on her stern for the first several voyages. Her maiden voyage commenced in New York with stops in Boston, Philadelphia, Norfolk, and Miami before continuing through the Panama Canal. From there she sailed to San Francisco and arrived in her new home in Honolulu just several days later. After the conclusion of her maiden voyage, she sailed weekly itineraries around the Hawaiian Islands with her running mate Pride of Aloha. For the next decade, she continued to cruise the same route, but lost some of her fleet mates in the process. Both Independence and United States, unfortunately, never entered service under the NCL America banner, with both being sold off several years later. Pride of Aloha withdrew from the Hawaiian market in May 2008, but is still cruising for Norwegian Cruise Line as Norwegian Sky. and the new build Jewel-class vessel, Pride of Hawaii, entered service in 2006, but was withdrawn from the Hawaiian market shortly thereafter in February 2008. She was renamed Norwegian Jade and is still cruising today for NCL. Pride of America is now the only member of the NCL America fleet that is both still in Hawaii and registered as a US flagged vessel. It's now safe to say that the NCL America venture, which the company had hoped would be a resounding success and help accomplish some of the same goals that American Classic Voyages had so many years prior, did not work out as well as expected. NCL CEO stated that the majority of the reason for the redeployments of the other two vessels was due to forced downward pricing as a result of having 3 ships there. The glaring consequence was a net loss in profits throughout the year of 2006. This, combined with staffing issues, as well as having a noticeable increase in foreign flag competition in the region, did not aid in the overall venture. Although now by herself, Pride of America continued to perform well, so much so that she has had several extensive renovations, the first of which occurred in March 2013, which added 24 large suites, updated the decor, and installed new public venues. As of the making of this video, Pride of America is continuing to sail for Norwegian Cruise Line out of the port of Honolulu on 7 and 11-day cruises around the Hawaiian Islands. It is nearly impossible to truly ascertain or grasp just how much the odds were stacked against Pride of America from becoming a reality. From the strict guidelines of being a US flagged ship, the lack of infrastructure at the chosen shipyard, financial problems in the early parts of construction, the collapse of the original owners, the shipping of materials across the Atlantic, the major storm, partial sinking, insurance debates, and increased competition are only a small part of the overall story. There is certainly more out there that is either not publicly known or is long forgotten that would show even more why this endeavor shouldn't have worked. Yet, somehow, when the cards were shown, she at the very least skated by to play another round. And when the final hand was dealt, and it seemed that there was no way for her to win, she somehow came on top and won the house. She may not be the biggest, most famous, and definitely not the most aesthetically pleasing cruise ship to look at, but because of her unique goals and knowing her heritage and journey to life, it cannot be denied that she is one of the most distinctive and perplexing members in the long history of the cruise ship industry. There is a reason why, after nearly 2 decades, she remains where she started, why so much money has been poured into her, and why she is still sailing with the same company. It just goes to show that a ship in today's environment that isn't big, glamorous, or record-breaking automatically translates into immediate failure. Sometimes ships like that do fail, but it's often because there are a number of additional issues other than size and looks. There are plenty of examples of large, aesthetically pleasing, and/or record-breaking ships that never even got off the drawing board. The former Project America vessel is one of the finest examples of taking something that really nobody wanted or couldn't figure out what to do with, taking a huge leap of faith, and bringing out something that ended up being so successful that she continues to thrive today, even as many ships with similar characteristics to her are long gone. Pride of America started in the 1990s as a bold and complicated idea that, despite its best intentions, was frequently put in front of the gates of failure, where so many other passenger ships before and after passed through. Yet every time the gig was up, death was averted. Now, nearly 30 years after she was first conceived, she continues to fulfill her intended role, carrying thousands of passengers around one of the most beautiful and dynamic pieces of nature, all while flying the American flag from her stern.
should've noticed, yeah, I should've tried. And all the loving that I just ignored, I'm gonna revive it, I'm gonna revive it.